Stranger Things deservedly acquired a cult. Following its release, it was everywhere from social media to the talk of the town. The show was full of mind-bending twists and turns throughout the entirety of the series. Today we're going to list the most thrilling, most beloved episodes of the show. Stick around to see if your favorite episode makes the list. Let's get into it. Starting us off is Chapter 9, The Gate, the Season 2 finale. The episode blasts off with Eleven and Mike finally reuniting after almost a year of being apart. Mike tells her he tried contacting her for months, but to no avail. Hopper finally admits that he had been keeping Eleven away from Mike all this time. Billy searches for the kids by asking Ms. Wheeler. Something is definitely off about him. Meanwhile, the gang lays out their plan of attack to combat the Mind Flayer. Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy must banish the Mind Flayer out of Will to allow Eleven and Hopper to close the gate. Joyce overheard Will saying the Mind Flayer must be kept cold and could possibly be destroyed by extreme heat. Hopper offers his cabin to Joyce to avoid the Demodogs, sensing Will is around. Mike, worrying about Eleven being overwhelmed by the Demodogs, wants everyone to go to the graveyard and start a fire to turn them away. Billy finds out where the kids are while searching for his sister Max. He sees her through the window and becomes enraged. He flies his way in and attacks Lucas. Steve being there prevents him from hurting Lucas, and now the fight between Steve and Billy is on. Billy grabs a plate in the kitchen and smacks it across Steve's head. Max miraculously intervenes and sedates Billy with Will's leftover sedative. Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy reach the cabin and tie Will to the bed. They start to make the cabin a furnace by lighting a fire and putting several heaters inside. Will becomes irate and rips free of his bindings, attacking Joyce until Nancy interrupts Will by burning him with the fire poker. The Mind Flayer suddenly releases Will and returns him to his normal state. Jonathan makes Hopper aware that the Mind Flayer has left Will, and he can now close the gate. Eleven, now facing the gate, uses her superpowers, but sees the Mind Flayer behind it. Eleven finds it in herself to use her fury to close the gate, pushing the Mind Flayer into a new realm. Next up, we have Chapter 8, Season 3, The Battle of Starcourt. Joyce, Murray, and Jim all drive to the Starcourt Mall to gather the kids. Eleven has a piece of the Mind Flayer in her leg. Jonathan searches for a knife anywhere in the mall and finds one in a nearby restaurant. As Jonathan tries to help Eleven take the piece out of her, Eleven finds it in herself to remove it with her superpowers instead. The kids inform the adults about the Russian army and the base that is inside the Starcourt Mall. The kids also mention that they fought the Mind Flayer, coming to the conclusion they need to shut the gate again to finally rid themselves of the Mind Flayer. As the adults wander into the Russian base, Nancy finds Billy in the parking lot inside his car. Rushing back into the mall, Billy corners the kids, and Max tries to bring him to reality with the stories of their childhood, failing to bring him back. He mangles the kids and takes Eleven with him to the food court. He mentions to Eleven to stay right there. The Mind Flayer returns to the mall, and Eleven tries her hand at bringing Billy back to the world by mentioning him and his mother together. The Mind Flayer impales Billy. Meanwhile, Joyce and Hopper are dealing with the Russians and the machine. The machine, due to a Russian being engulfed inside of it, malfunctions, trapping Hopper with him. Joyce finally closes the gate, and Hopper is suddenly gone. The Mind Flayer is destroyed. The next episode on our list is Chapter 8, Season 1, The Upside Down. Joyce is furious at the National Laboratory for faking Will's death. Meanwhile, Hopper is being interrogated by Connie Fraser. She threatens to kill him and acts as if it was a drug overdose. Jonathan and Nancy are working on traps to defeat Demogorgons at the Byers' house. Hopper, bidding for his freedom to Brenner, reveals Brenner will only agree if he gives up Eleven. Hopper and Joyce suit up and go through the lab's gate. As Joyce begins to panic once in the Upside Down, Hopper tries to calm her and remembers doing the same thing for his daughter Sarah when she had trouble breathing. Nancy and Jonathan end up together, slitting their palms and holding hands. Steve shows up, wanting to apologize for fighting with him. Steve can't help but notice the recent cut on Nancy's palm and asks her what has happened. The house is in disarray, shocking Steve as he becomes confused. Nancy pulls out a gun on Steve, begging him to leave her and Jonathan alone. Just as Steve is about to leave, the lights in the house flicker. Demogorgons burst out of the ceiling, and the teens run to Will's room. They previously set up a signal alert to alert them when it gets caught in a homemade bear trap. Steve leaves the house, but can't help but notice the lights are still flickering even from the outside and decides to go storming back into the house. One Demogorgon jumps onto Jonathan, but Steve helps him by beating it with a nail bat. Jonathan then continues to light the beast on fire. Will wakes up in the hospital to his mother and brother beside him. The group recaps Will on what has happened the last few eventful days. On Christmas, the group has another Dungeons & Dragons meetup. They fight a monster called Thessal Hydra and defeat the monster with Will's fireball spell. During dinner with the family, Will enters the bathroom and projectile vomits a slug that glides down the drain. Will sees a flash of the Upside Down world. Next up, Chapter 8, Season 2, The Mind Flayer. Jim Hopper is confronted by a juvenile Demogorgon in the laboratory. They're only separated by a thick sheet of glass. Sam Owens proclaims it cannot be broken. Several more demons join in and cause a shattering effect in the glass, causing it to burst open. The scientists and all the adults flee in a state of massive panic. Sam puts the lab under lockdown, and he takes Hopper with him down the stairs. Meanwhile, the other scientists who do not follow Sam and Hopper get massacred by the Demogorgons. Mike makes an assumption about needing Will to be sedated so the monster cannot sense where they're taking him. Will hates this idea, but his mother Joyce sedates him anyway. Hopper and Sam make their way to the lab just as the Demogorgons break in, and the gang runs to a security room. Abruptly, the power goes out, leaving everyone stranded inside the lab. Nancy and Jonathan show up at the lab to find themselves locked out. They gather Steve and the kids. Bob comes along with them and successfully restarts the system, allowing the scientists and Hopper to get in. Bob has a near-death experience with the Demogorgon, but finds a closet to escape in. He makes a fatal mistake and accidentally knocks a mop over in the closet. He makes his way to the exit to find the group and says his greeting to Joyce when a Demogorgon bursts through the door, mauling Bob to shreds. Last but not least, Chapter 6, Season 2, The Spy. The episode stomps down with Will being severely tormented by convulsions. They bring him to Hawkins Hospital with his mom, her boyfriend Bob, and her friend Mike. The doctors say he's burning inside and they need to sedate him just to keep him alive. Lab agents enter the house of Joyce Byers, discovering the drawings plastered upon the walls of the home. They discover the drawing Will made of the shadow monster. Joyce explains to the doctors what happened to Will while he was in school, and they have no idea how to cure him. Finally, Will has fallen asleep only to wake up. Will finds himself without any memory of Bob or his mother and friends. The scientists become impatient because they're unable to stop the gates from opening because it will kill Will. Will comes to fruition and has an idea on how he can beat the monster he's battling. Jonathan and Nancy go back to the Byers' house to find it barren and covered in drawings. Will identifies a space that the monster does not want him to see. As the soldiers prepare to go underground, they're guided by some technician reading the map over. Steve and the kids barricade the abandoned bus and pour a trail of gas on the bait for the Demogorgon. Thanks for watching, guys! I hope you enjoyed the top 5 Stranger Things episodes. Was there something we included that we shouldn't have? Or did we forget your favorite episode? Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel to see more just like it. See you in the next one!